The sun rose gently over the plains of Loitoktok, spreading its golden light across the tall grass and acacia trees. In the cool of the morning, a young girl named Nalachawesha walked gracefully to the river, a clay pot balanced on her head. She was known in the village for her quiet spirit and the soft songs she hummed when she worked. As she bent to fill her pot, she heard a voice behind her. "You always come before the sun reaches the hill," said Lamayan, a tall young herdsman, his spear glinting in the morning light. Nalachawesha turned, surprised, then smiled shyly. "And you always seem to find me before I finish," she said softly. From that morning on, they met by the river often, not by plan, but by rhythm. They spoke about the future, about dreams of traveling beyond the hills and seeing the great world beyond the Maasai lands. Lamayan loved how her laughter echoed across the water. Nalachawesha loved how his eyes held honesty and peace. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the savannah, Lamayan whispered, "When I see you, I feel the world is still good." Nalachawesha looked at him, her heart full, but she said nothing. She didn't need to. The silence between them was already love. As the seasons changed, so did their bond. Nalachawesha's mother began to notice her long walks and quiet smiles. Her father, an elder of great respect, grew suspicious. "A girl's heart must be guarded," he warned. "Love cannot cross clans." But love had already crossed. That night, at the village dance, the warriors gathered around the fire. The drums echoed through the night sky. Lamayan's eyes searched for hers, and when they met, it felt like time stopped. The fire between them burned stronger than the one before them, but not everyone smiled at their closeness. Lamayan's father, old Kisio, was a proud man. He wanted his son to marry from a wealthy family of cattle keepers. "Love does not fill the kraal," he said sternly. "A warrior must choose with his head, not his heart." When Lamayan tried to speak of Nalachawesha, his father's voice grew cold. "You will forget this girl. You will travel with the Morans. Love is for the weak." That night, Lamayan stood outside his hut, staring at the stars. The same stars that Nalachawesha watched from her homestead far away. Though distance now separated them, both whispered the same silent promise. Rumors spread faster than wind across the plains. Soon, both families knew of the young lovers. The elders met beneath the great acacia tree, where matters of the heart became matters of the clan. Nalachawesha sat outside her hut, her mother beside her. "My daughter," her mother said gently, "our hearts are not always stronger than our traditions. Sometimes love is the sacrifice." Tears filled her eyes, but Nalachawesha spoke softly. "If love is a sacrifice, then I will carry it." The elders spoke for hours. Some said the two should be separated. Others argued that young love must be guided, not broken. But old Kisio's voice was final. "My son will travel to the north with the Morans," he said. "He must forget this foolishness." Nalachawesha watched from afar as his figure faded into the horizon. The river still flowed, the wind still blew, but to her the world suddenly felt empty. Still, deep inside her heart, hope whispered, "Love does not die. It only waits." Months passed, and the dry season came. The earth cracked under the sun's weight, and the air was filled with the smell of dust and longing. Nalachawesha still walked to the river each morning, though she no longer heard his voice there. She would pause, hoping the wind might carry his words again. But only the sound of birds and distant cattle filled the silence. Lemayan, far to the north, lived among the warriors. His days were filled with training, herding, and long marches. But at night, when the fire burned low, his thoughts wandered back to the river. Letters could not reach her, but his heart still spoke her name. In the quiet of his soul, he promised himself, "One day I will return, not as a boy, but as a man worthy of her love." Back in the village, Nalachawesha faced pressure from her parents. Suitors came with cattle and gifts, but she turned them all away. "My heart is already spoken for," she would whisper. Her mother worried, but deep down she admired her daughter's strength. Love, she knew, was not a weakness. 3 years later, the rains returned, and so did Lemayan. The once young herder now stood tall, with the scars of battles fought and the wisdom of distance written in his eyes. The village gathered to welcome the returning Morans. Songs of praise filled the air, and laughter danced among the people. Nalachawesha stood quietly behind the crowd, her heart racing. When their eyes met again, time folded. It was as if the river, the plains, and the years between them had vanished. That night, Lemayan went to her homestead. The stars shone brightly above as he approached her mother's hut. He knelt and said softly, "I did not forget. I carried her in my heart through every journey, every storm." Her mother looked at him for a long moment, then smiled faintly. Love that survives time is rare, but the heart of a father is stubborn. You must win his forgiveness, not just her hand. Lemayan nodded. "I will." The next day, Lemayan stood before the elders once again under the old acacia tree. His father, old Kisio, sat among them, proud yet cold. "I have returned," Lemayan began. "I have fought, herded, and honored our name. But one battle still remains, to make peace with the heart that I wronged. My love for Nalachawesha was never rebellion. It was truth." The elders murmured. Some nodded, others frowned. Old Kisio rose slowly. "You have spoken well, my son," he said, "but love cannot be built on defiance." Lemayan bowed his head. "Then let it be built on forgiveness." Silence fell. The old man's eyes softened for the first time. He looked toward Nalachawesha, who stood quietly at the edge of the gathering, her eyes glistening. "If this love can honor both families, then who am I to stand in its way?" A cheer rose among the villagers. Nalachawesha's mother embraced her daughter, whispering, "The heart that waits in faith will always find its way home." The day of their union came with songs that echoed through the hills. Women sang blessings, warriors. Elders prayed for a love that would last longer than the rains. Nalachawesha wore a red shuka, embroidered with beads that shimmered in the sun. Lemayan stood tall beside her, his spear now a symbol of protection, not war. Under the same acacia tree where the elders once forbade their love, they exchanged vows. "I loved you when the world said I should not," Lemayan said, "and I waited for you when the world said I was foolish," Nalachawesha replied. The crowd cheered as drums thundered, and the wind carried their laughter across the plains. The acacia tree swayed gently, its branches dancing like an old witness smiling upon their love. That night, under the stars, they sat by the fire hand in hand. Two hearts that had walked through storms, now resting in peace. Years later, Malochoesha and Lamayan had children of their own, bright-eyed and curious like the sunrise. Every evening, they would tell them the story of how love had faced distance, pride, and pain, yet in